Hey guys, tonight we're going to wander through a time of warm bread, soft prayers, and sleepy beer. You find yourself stepping into the cold morning mist of a medieval convent, the hush of the stone walls holding every small breath like a secret. Your breath clouds in the chill air, your fingers fumble with the heavy wooden door, and you can't help but wonder if you'd survive even a single dawn in this quiet world of early prayers and endless chores. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge across the frozen cobblestones of the courtyard, the faint scent of wood smoke in the air, your boots slipping on a thin sheet of ice. The convent's bells chime softly overhead, each note drifting through the fog like a quiet sigh. A nun in a teal cloak glides past you, her breath forming soft clouds, her eyes bright with that early morning calm that says she's been awake long enough to be patient and wise, and probably to wonder why you're still half asleep. The convent chickens cluck softly in a corner pen, their feathers fluffed against the cold, and you can't help but smile. Who knew that such a gentle hush could hold so much life? The nuns move like shadows in the mist, their warm saffron and indigo cloaks bright against the gray stone. You watch as they gather at the small well, buckets in hand, the hush of the courtyard turning even the smallest splash of water into a kind of music. Historians still argue whether these early morning gatherings were more about silent devotion or practical necessity. Some say the nuns found a kind of peace in the hush, others that they were simply too tired to chatter before the first sip of beer. Because yes, even here, beer is waiting, hiding in the heart of the kitchen, ready to turn the cold stone halls warm and bright. You walk with them through the narrow door, the scent of yeast and warm grain already filling the air. A heavy wooden table stretches beneath a small window, and a single candle flickers, its flame trembling in the dawn light. You see Sister Hildegard standing there, her hands dusted with flour, her eyes soft and sure as she works. She nods once as you enter, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth, as if to say, "Welcome to the morning, and may the warmth of this kitchen be a soft blessing." The hush here is different, deeper, somehow, as if every stone and beam has learned the secret of patience. You see a young nun carefully stacking bundles of dried herbs in a corner, each bundle tied with twine the color of old parchment. Another girl in a russet cloak carries a wooden bucket of water from the well, her steps measured and slow, each drop that spills a soft note in the hush, and in that quiet, you feel how the day begins. Not with loud proclamations, but with the gentle rhythm of breath and footstep, of soft prayers and warm bread rising in the small oven. You breathe in the scent of barley and fresh hay, and you know that even here, where the world seems to hold its breath, there is warmth waiting, gentle and kind as the hush that cradles you close. You watch as Sister Hildegard wipes her flour-dusted hands on her simple apron, her breath slow and sure in the warm hush of the kitchen. The small hearth crackles softly behind her, its glow turning the rough stone walls to honey and gold. She hums under her breath, a soft tune that curls like steam in the cold air, and you can't help but feel that even here, where the dawn is still gray and patient, there is something bright and kind. You move closer to the heavy wooden table, its worn surface scattered with bundles of barley and small clay pots of herbs. Sister Hildegard's hands are steady as she lifts a handful of pale golden grains, her fingers gentle as she lets them slip through her fingers like sand. She glances at you with a small, secret smile, and you see the quiet pride in her eyes. A pride that says this work, this quiet craft, is more than just a task. It's a kind of prayer. Historians still argue whether the nuns who brewed beer were simply carrying on a practical tradition or if they found something more in the slow, patient work. Some say it was necessity, a way to keep the cold at bay, to fill the hungry bellies of the convent. Others claim it was devotion, a way to weave the quiet prayers of their days into something warm and alive, something that could be shared in every cup. Sister Hildegard begins to sort the grains, her fingers quick and sure, and you watch how she pauses every so often to brush a stray seed from the table, her movements as careful as a soft breath in the hush. The kitchen smells of sweet grain and the faint tang of dried hops, the air warm with the promise of the day's first brew. A young novice in a teal cloak appears at the door, her cheeks flushed pink from the cold, and Sister Hildegard waves her in with a small, warm smile. The novice sets a small wicker basket of fresh eggs on the table, her breath coming in soft, white clouds, and you see how the hush bends around them both, patient and kind. The novice's eyes are wide as she watches Sister Hildegard begin to weigh the grains, the small iron scale creaking softly with each careful measure. You lean closer, the hush of the kitchen folding around you like a soft quilt, and you feel the warmth of the small fire, the gentle promise of the brewing day. Sister Hildegard catches your eye and winks, her lips curving in a quiet grin. "Watch carefully," she seems to say, and you do, because even here, in the simple act of measuring grain and whispering soft prayers, there is something that feels like magic. She lifts a small wooden scoop and begins to fill the copper kettle, the soft clatter of the grains a lullaby in the hush. You see how she pauses every so often to brush a finger across her lips, a silent blessing for the brew to come. The novice watches with wide eyes, her fingers tangled in the folds of her cloak, and you see the wonder there. A small, bright spark that says even this quiet work can be something more than just another dawn in the cold. And as Sister Hildegard lifts the last scoop of grain, the hush seems to sigh around you, the promise of warmth and laughter and quiet comfort wrapped in every breath of the small kitchen's air. You watch Sister Hildegard's careful hands as she sets the last of the barley aside, the soft clink of the wooden scoop echoing in the warm hush. She leans closer to the table, her fingers tracing the edges of a small scrap of parchment tucked beneath a heavy stone jar. You see how her eyes soften, the faint lines at the corners of her mouth deepening with the memory of something old and precious. The hush holds its breath as she lifts the parchment, her thumb brushing the delicate script that winds across the yellowed page. The recipe for the sleepy beer is written in small, careful letters, each word a promise, each line a quiet secret shared only among the trusted sisters of the convent. You lean closer, your own breath slow and even, and you feel how the hush wraps around you, turning every word into a soft, patient prayer. Historians still argue whether these secret recipes were kept hidden out of necessity or out of pride. Some say they were guarded because the beer was a small source of the convent's income, others that it was a quiet tradition, a way to keep the warmth and laughter alive in the cold hush of the cloister. Either way, you feel the weight of the secret in Sister Hildegard's careful touch. She sets the parchment gently on the table, her fingers resting on the ink-stained words as she breathes in slow and deep. The young novice in teal leans closer, her eyes wide with wonder, and you see how the hush folds around her too. Patient and kind, Sister Hildegard begins to murmur the recipe under her breath, her voice a soft song that weaves through the warm air. You catch snatches of the old words: sweet malt, honey, rosemary, and the curious mention of a single bright clove, just enough to warm the heart but not to stir it too bright. You smile, your breath warm in the hush, and you feel the soft weight of history settle around you like a gentle quilt. She lifts a small clay pot of dried herbs, the scent of lavender and sage drifting through the warm air, and you see how her eyes flicker with a quiet joy. The novice leans closer, her fingers brushing the edge of the parchment, and you see how the hush cradles them both, turning every breath into a quiet promise. Sister Hildegard's lips curve in a faint smile as she lifts the parchment once more, her voice a soft whisper in the hush. "This is the heart of the brew," she seems to say, and you see how every small word carries the weight of 100 sleepy nights, of laughter shared in the soft dark, of the slow, gentle hum of prayers folded into every bubbling pot. You watch as she sets the parchment back beneath the heavy stone jar, her fingers pressing it flat with a reverence that feels as old as the quiet stone walls. The novice glances up at her, her breath caught in the warm air, and you see the small, bright wonder in her eyes. A wonder that says even here, in the patient hush of the convent, there is magic waiting to be shared, and in that hush, in the soft flicker of the fire and the warm glow of the rushlight, you feel the promise of the sleepy beer. Its gentle warmth, its soft laughter, its quiet promise of rest waiting at the end of every long day. You feel the hush wrap around you as Sister Hildegard and the novice begin to grind the barley, their quiet chatter blending with the rhythmic scrape of stone on grain. The heavy millstone creaks softly with each turn, the pale dust of barley rising in the warm air like a soft sigh. You watch the two of them work, their movements careful and sure, and you can't help but smile at the small jokes that slip between the steady turns of the stone. The novice laughs once, a soft sound that curls like steam in the hush, and Sister Hildegard glances at her with a warm smile. "Careful," she says, her voice a gentle hush in the quiet. "The grain must be patient, just as we must be." The novice nods, her eyes bright, and you see how the hush holds them both, every small laugh and gentle breath turning the cold stone walls to honey and gold. Historians still argue whether the nuns saw this work as devotion or simply as the day's necessity. Some say it was a holy act, a quiet prayer folded into every turn of the millstone. Others that it was just the slow, patient work of living. But you see the small, bright spark of laughter that says it can be both. A gentle breath of prayer and the small, warm promise of laughter shared in the hush. The novice wipes a smear of barley dust from her cheek with the edge of her cloak, her fingers leaving a faint white mark on the rough wool. She leans back, her breath slow and even, and you see how the hush holds even that small moment close. A soft, quiet promise that even in the cold, there is warmth waiting. Sister Hildegard pauses to rest her hands on the smooth wood of the mill, her breath slow and steady. She glances at you with a small, knowing smile, as if to say, "It's not just about the beer. It's about the laughter, the warmth, the soft hush that holds us all." You nod, your breath slow and easy, and you feel how the hush settles into your bones, patient and kind. The novice reaches for a small scoop of fresh ground barley, her fingers careful as she lifts it to her nose, the sweet scent of grain and the faint tang of the hearth fire curling around her. She smiles, her eyes bright, and you see how the hush holds that smile, how it turns every small breath into something warm and bright. You watch as Sister Hildegard adds another handful of barley to the mill, her hands steady and sure, and you feel the slow rhythm of the hush, the gentle scrape of stone, the soft breath of the novice, the quiet hum of the fire. It's a small, simple song, but in the hush it becomes something more. A quiet promise of warmth, of laughter, of the sleepy beer that waits in the heart of the convent. And in that hush, in the slow, patient rhythm of the work, you see how even the smallest act, grinding barley, sharing a quiet smile, can turn the cold, quiet dark into something warm and bright. You watch as Sister Hildegard and the novice lift the ground barley into a small wooden tub, the sweet scent of malt drifting through the warm hush of the kitchen. The novice wipes her hands on the edge of her teal cloak, her cheeks flushed with the soft heat of the hearth. She leans closer to Sister Hildegard, her eyes wide with a question that flickers in the soft dark. Sister Hildegard smiles, her eyes crinkling at the corners, and she nods toward a small shelf lined with clay pots of dried herbs and fragrant roots. "We add a few of these," she says, her voice low and warm, "to bring the dreams a little closer." You watch as she reaches for a small bundle of dried rosemary, the brittle leaves rustling softly in the hush. She crumbles it into the tub, the sharp, green scent rising like a gentle breath. Next, she adds a pinch of dried sage, the faintly bitter edge of it curling through the warm air. The novice's eyes widen, her fingers hovering over the small pots as if they hold 100 quiet secrets. Historians still argue whether these herbs were chosen for their taste or their magic. Some say they were simply the flavors of the day, others that they carried the quiet promise of sleep, the soft breath of dreams folded into every sip. You see how the hush holds that debate close, every small choice a gentle echo of something older and deeper. The novice leans closer, her breath quick and light, and you see how the hush folds around her, patient and kind. Sister Hildegard reaches for a small, round root, its surface dark and gnarled, and you watch as she scrapes a sliver of it into the tub. "Valerian," she murmurs, her eyes bright, "for the restless heart." The novice's lips part in a small O, her breath catching in the warm dark, and you see how even that soft sound is held in the hush, every word and sigh wrapped in the gentle promise of the sleepy beer. You see how Sister Hildegard pauses for a moment, her hand resting on the edge of the tub, her eyes distant as she hums a soft tune under her breath. The hush leans in to catch that song, the warmth of it curling around the small kitchen like a soft, patient prayer. The novice reaches for a small bundle of lavender, her fingers brushing the pale, brittle flowers, and Sister Hildegard nods, a faint smile in the hush. "A gentle touch," she says, her voice soft, "for a gentle sleep." You see how the novice's eyes brighten, how the hush folds that moment close, turning every breath and every small smile into something warm and bright. And as they work, as the sweet, soft scent of herbs fills the quiet kitchen. You feel how even here, in the slow, patient hush, there is a small, bright promise. A promise that even the coldest night can be turned warm with nothing more than a handful of barley, a few bright herbs, and a quiet prayer in the soft dark. You watch as Sister Hildegard gathers the heavy wooden bucket in her arms, the worn handle smooth from 100 gentle prayers. She glances back at the novice, her smile soft and sure, and you see how the hush folds around them both like a warm quilt. "The water must be pure," she says, her voice a soft murmur, "drawn from the well that knows our prayers." You follow them as they slip out of the warm kitchen, the cold morning air biting at your cheeks. The convent courtyard is quiet beneath the pale dawn, the well standing in the center like a silent witness to centuries of small, patient hopes. Frost glitters on the stones, each breath of the sisters a small cloud in the hush. The novice hesitates, her fingers tight on the bucket's edge, and Sister Hildegard places a gentle hand on her shoulder. "The well remembers," she whispers, her voice a hush within the hush, and you see how the novice's eyes brighten in the cold light. Historians still argue whether the sacred wells of the convents were truly blessed or simply the only source of water in a hard, quiet world. Some say they were places of healing, others that they were just the heart of every quiet day. But you feel it now, the way the hush seems to lean in closer, the way each stone breathes a small, soft promise. Sister Hildegard lowers the bucket into the dark mouth of the well, the squeak of the old rope a quiet echo in the cold air. You watch as she closes her eyes, her breath a soft prayer, and you feel how the hush holds that breath close, turning even the smallest word into something warm and bright. The novice watches with wide eyes, her breath slow and sure, and you see how she leans forward, her fingers brushing the rough edge of the stone. The bucket dips into the water, the soft splash like a sigh, and for a moment, the hush holds everything still. You see how the water shimmers in the dim light, a small pool of silver in the cold dark. Sister Hildegard draws it up, her hands steady and sure, and the hush breathes with her, the quiet weight of the moment wrapped in the gentle creak of the rope. She sets the bucket on the cold stones, her breath slow and even, and the novice leans forward, her fingers trailing in the cool water. She smiles, a soft, secret curve of her lips, and you see how the hush holds that smile close, every breath turned gentle and kind. Sister Hildegard dips her hand into the water, her fingers moving slow and sure, and you watch as she lifts a handful to her lips, her eyes soft in the gray light. The novice mimics her breath catching as the cold water touches her skin, and you see how even here, in the quiet hush of the dawn, there is a small, bright promise. A promise of warmth, of laughter, of sleepy beer waiting to turn the night soft and kind. And as they turn back toward the kitchen, the bucket full and their steps slow and sure, you feel how the hush of the courtyard settles around you, gentle and warm as the first small promise of light. You step back into the kitchen with Sister Hildegard and the novice, the wooden bucket heavy with the hush of the well. The small fire crackles softly in the hearth, the warm glow turning the cold air to honey and gold. Sister Hildegard sets the bucket on the worn stone floor, her breath a slow, patient sigh, and you feel how the hush folds around her, gentle and sure. The novice wipes her hands on her teal cloak, her fingers trembling with the quiet thrill of the morning. She glances at you with a small, shy smile, and you see how the hush holds that smile close, how it cradles even the smallest warmth in the soft dark. Sister Hildegard lifts the heavy copper kettle from its place by the fire, the metal warm beneath her careful hands. She sets it on the low hearth, the hush of the kitchen wrapping around the soft hiss of steam and the quiet clink of the kettle's edge. You see how she moves with a patient grace, each small step a quiet prayer in the warm hush. Historians still argue whether the brewing of beer in these small kitchens was just another task in the day or a small, bright ritual, a quiet blessing folded into every breath of the warm air. Some say it was the heart of the convent, others that it was simply a gentle, patient art. But you see the way the hush holds Sister Hildegard's soft smile, the way it cradles the novice's bright eyes, and you know that even here, in the cold heart of the morning, there is warmth waiting. The novice carries a small wooden ladle to the kettle, her breath slow and sure, and you watch how she dips it into the cool water, the soft, bright splash a gentle promise in the hush. Sister Hildegard nods, her eyes bright, and you see how the hush holds that small movement close, every breath wrapped in the warm glow of the fire. She begins to pour the water into the copper kettle, her hands steady, the hush folding around the soft sound of water meeting metal. The novice watches with wide eyes, her breath catching as the steam curls in the cold air. And you see how the hush bends to that small wonder, turning every breath into a promise. Sister Hildegard glances at you, her smile soft and knowing, and you feel how the hush holds that glance like a quiet secret. The novice leans closer, her hand resting on the edge of the worn wooden table, and you see how the hush cradles her breath, turning even the smallest sigh into something gentle and kind. The kettle begins to hum, the soft bubble of water like a small, bright song in the warm hush. Sister Hildegard lifts her hand, her fingers brushing the edge of the kettle, and you see how the hush breathes with her, every small movement a quiet prayer in the gentle dark, and in that soft, warm hush, you feel how even the coldest morning can be turned to gold with nothing more than a copper kettle, a few careful hands, and the quiet promise of sleepy beer waiting to turn the night kind. You watch as Sister Hildegard takes the long wooden spoon, the smooth handle worn by countless careful hands. She leans over the copper kettle, her breath slow and sure, and begins to stir the water, the soft swirl of steam rising like a gentle prayer in the hush. The novice watches, her eyes bright with the quiet wonder of the moment, and you see how the hush folds around them both, every breath turned warm and soft. The slow, patient rhythm of the stirring is like a heartbeat in the hush, each circle of the spoon a soft promise, each small swirl a quiet echo of something older and deeper. Sister Hildegard hums under her breath, the sound a gentle melody that curls like steam in the cold air. You see how the novice leans closer, her fingers resting lightly on the edge of the worn wooden table, and you feel how the hush holds them both, turning every breath into something kind. Historians still argue whether this act of stirring was meant to be a simple task or a small devotion, a way to weave the quiet prayers of the nuns into every sip of the sleepy beer. Some say it was nothing more than a step in the brewing, others that it was a soft, patient magic that turned even the coldest night to gold. But you see how the hush breathes with each slow turn of the spoon, how it holds every small movement like a promise. The novice glances up at Sister Hildegard, her lips parting in a soft question, and you see the way the hush cradles even that faint sound. Sister Hildegard nods, her smile warm and sure, and she leans closer to whisper something you can't quite catch. A quiet secret shared in the hush of the warm, flickering dark. The novice takes the spoon from Sister Hildegard, her fingers trembling just a little, and begins to stir. The water swirls beneath her careful hand, the soft rhythm of it folding into the hush like a lullaby. She glances up, her eyes bright with the small thrill of the moment, and you see how the hush turns even that small breath into something gentle and kind. The copper kettle glows in the flicker of the rushlight, the warm sheen of it turning the quiet dark to honey and gold. You feel how the hush folds around you, patient and sure, every breath a soft step in the slow, warm promise of the sleepy beer. And in that gentle hush, in the soft swirl of water and the quiet hum of Sister Hildegard's song, you feel how even the smallest act, a careful stir, a quiet breath, can turn the cold, silent dark into something warm and bright, a soft promise of dreams waiting to bloom in the gentle glow of the night. You stand by the hearth, the hush of the kitchen wrapping around you like a soft cloak as the copper kettle begins to bubble and steam. Sister Hildegard lifts her hand to brush a stray wisp of hair from her face, her smile soft and sure in the warm glow. The novice leans closer, her breath a quiet sigh in the hush, and you see how her eyes glow with the small thrill of the moment. Sister Hildegard glances at the flickering rushlight on the worn wooden shelf, its flame small and steady in the soft dark. "This is the hour for Nachtbier," she murmurs, her voice low and gentle. "A small sip of beer to bring dreams to those who cannot sleep." You feel the hush shift around her words, the quiet weight of them settling like a soft blanket over the cold stones. Historians still argue whether the tradition of Nachtbier was born from simple comfort or something deeper, a small rebellion against the cold dark, or a gentle offering to the quiet hush of the night. Some say it was a blessing, others that it was a secret, a soft prayer hidden in every sip. But you see how Sister Hildegard's eyes shine, how the novice's breath grows slow and sure, and you know that even here, in the flicker of the rushlight, the hush holds a promise. The novice tilts her head, her brow furrowing in the warm dark. Will it really bring sleep? She asks, her voice a soft breath in the hush. Sister Hildegard smiles, her lips curving like the slow bend of moonlight, and she leans closer, her voice low. The hops are gentle, she says, but it is the prayer that makes the dreams sweet. You see how the novice's eyes widen, how her fingers tighten on the edge of the table, and you feel the hush fold around them both. Every small breath and soft word turn to honey and gold. The copper kettle hums with a quiet promise, the soft bubble of it like a lullaby in the hush, and you watch as Sister Hildegard dips a wooden ladle into the warm water. Her hands steady and sure, she lifts the ladle to her lips, her breath slow and even, and you see how the hush leans close to catch that quiet sip. The novice follows, her own breath a small, bright sigh in the warm dark, and you see how even the smallest taste can be a promise. A gentle echo of laughter and dreams, of warm beds and soft prayers whispered in the hush. The copper kettle glows in the flicker of the fire, the scent of sweet herbs and barley thick in the air, and you feel how the hush breathes with every small sound. Every gentle laugh, every slow breath, every quiet promise of the sleepy beer waiting to turn the night soft and kind, and as you stand there, the hush of the kitchen folding around you like a soft lullaby, you know that even here, in the cold heart of the convent, there is warmth waiting. A small, bright promise in every quiet sip, every gentle breath, every soft step in the warm hush of the sleepy beer. You watch as Sister Hildegard lifts the heavy kettle from the hearth, her arms steady and sure, the steam rising in gentle curls that turn the hush of the kitchen to soft gold. She sets it on a worn wooden stand, the iron legs creaking as the kettle settles into place. The novice steps closer, her fingers brushing the warm copper, and you see how the hush folds around them both like a patient breath. The air smells of barley and sweet herbs, the faint tang of hops curling through the warm hush like a promise. You see how the novice's eyes widen, her breath catching in the soft glow of the rushlights, and you can't help but smile, because even here, in the quiet dark, the sleepy beer carries a small, bright spark. A promise of warmth, of rest, of laughter shared in the hush. Sister Hildegard glances at the novice, her smile warm and kind, and she leans closer, her voice low. "This is the cellar's hour," she murmurs, "where the beer will find its rest." You feel how the hush breathes around her words, how it folds each small sound close like a gentle prayer. Historians still argue whether the cellars of the convent were simply storage or something more. Some say they were sacred, others that they were just cold stone and cool air. But you see how Sister Hildegard's eyes shine as she lifts the kettle, how the novice's breath grows slow and sure, and you know that even here, in the hush of the cellar, there is warmth waiting. The heavy wooden door creaks softly as Sister Hildegard pushes it open, the cold air of the cellar drifting up like a sigh. The novice hesitates, her fingers tight on the edge of the door, and you see how the hush leans close around her, every small breath turned warm and kind. They step down the worn stone steps, the flicker of the rushlight casting long shadows that dance on the cool walls. The cellar smells of damp earth and old wood, the quiet weight of it pressing against your chest like a gentle hand. Sister Hildegard pauses, her breath slow and even, and you see how the hush folds around her, turning every step into a soft promise. She sets the kettle down on a low stone ledge, her hands steady, and the novice watches with wide eyes, her breath a soft sigh in the cold hush. The wooden casks line the walls, their round bellies warm and patient in the dim light, and you feel how the hush cradles every small sound. The soft creak of wood, the gentle sigh of steam, the slow, patient promise of the sleepy beer. Sister Hildegard dips a small wooden cup into the kettle, her hands careful and sure, and she lifts it to the novice, her smile bright in the warm dark. The novice takes the cup, her fingers trembling, and you see how the hush holds that small moment close. How it turns every breath, every quiet sip, into something warm and kind, and in that soft, gentle hush, in the warm glow of the flickering rushlights and the cool breath of the cellar, you know that even the coldest night can be turned warm and bright with nothing more than a handful of barley, a quiet prayer, and the slow, patient promise of sleepy beer waiting to carry you to dreams. You watch as Sister Hildegard lifts her hand, her fingers brushing the worn wood of a cask that sits in the corner of the cool, quiet cellar. The hush here is deeper, a soft, patient breath that holds every small sound close. Every drip of water, every faint creak of the old beams overhead. You see how the novice leans closer, her breath slow and sure, her eyes bright in the flicker of the rushlight. Sister Hildegard begins to whisper, her voice low and warm in the hush. Each cask, she says, is blessed before the first taste, a small prayer to Saint Brigid, who knows the comfort of warm bread and sleepy beer. You see how the novice's eyes widen, her fingers brushing the edge of the cask, and you feel how the hush folds around them both, turning every breath into something bright and kind. Historians still argue whether these blessings were true acts of devotion or simply a quiet tradition, folded into the long hours of brewing and prayer. Some say the prayers were meant to keep the beer sweet, others that they were a gentle offering to the hush itself, a small, bright spark in the cold, quiet dark. But you see how Sister Hildegard's eyes shine as she leans closer to the cask, how the novice's breath grows slow and steady, and you know that even here, in the cool hush of the cellar, there is warmth waiting. The novice bows her head, her hands resting on the rough wood, and Sister Hildegard lifts her voice in a soft prayer. The words drift through the hush like a lullaby, each small breath a promise, each quiet word a gentle blessing that settles on the warm air. The novice whispers along, her lips moving in the soft dark, and you see how the hush breathes with them, how it cradles every word like a gentle song. Sister Hildegard traces a small cross on the cask, her fingers gentle and sure, and you feel how the hush holds that motion close, turning even the smallest touch into something warm and bright. The novice lifts her head, her eyes shining, and you see the faint, secret smile that flickers across her lips. A small, bright promise that even the quietest hush can hold laughter close. The rushlight flickers, the warm glow turning the cold stone walls to honey and gold, and you feel how the hush wraps around you, patient and kind. Sister Hildegard dips a small cup into the cask, the soft splash of liquid a quiet echo in the hush, and she lifts it to the novice, her smile soft and sure. The novice takes the cup, her hands trembling just a little, and lifts it to her lips. You watch as she sips, her breath slow and even, and you see how the hush seems to sigh around her, how it folds that small, bright moment into something warm and gentle, and in that quiet, in the soft flicker of the rushlight and the slow, patient hush of the cellar, you know that even here, where the world seems to hold its breath, there is a small, bright promise of laughter shared in the soft dark, of warmth waiting in every quiet sip, of the sleepy beer that turns even the coldest hush into something warm and kind. You linger in the hush of the cellar as Sister Hildegard dips her hand into a small basket of dried hops, the faint scent of green and gold curling around her fingers. The novice watches, her breath soft and even, and you see how the hush folds around them both, every quiet breath turning the cold stone to something warm and bright. Sister Hildegard lifts the small basket, her eyes bright in the flicker of the rushlight. The hops, she says, her voice low and sure, turn bitterness to calm, soft and kind, like the hush itself. The novice leans closer, her fingers brushing the edge of the basket, and you feel how the hush breathes with her, turning every small movement into something gentle and warm. Historians still argue whether hops were chosen for their bitter bite or their soft promise of sleep. Some say they were just another flavor in the quiet dark, others that they carried the hush itself, a small, bright prayer for rest in the soft, warm night. You see how Sister Hildegard's hands move, slow and careful, how the novice's eyes widen in the warm glow, and you know that even here, in the quiet dark of the cellar, there is a gentle magic. The novice lifts a small handful of the dried hops, her breath slow and sure, and you see how she holds them close, her eyes bright with wonder. Sister Hildegard's smile curves, soft and knowing, and she lifts the small basket to her lips, the scent of the hops a gentle promise in the hush. The hops rustle softly as she adds them to the cask. The faint crackle of dry leaves a soft song in the quiet dark. The novice watches, her breath catching in the warm air, and you feel how the hush bends to that small wonder, how it cradles every breath and every soft sound. The rushlight flickers, the warm glow turning the cool air to honey and gold, and you see how the novice's smile blooms in the soft dark. She glances at Sister Hildegard, her lips parting in a small, bright laugh, and you see how the hush holds that sound close, how it turns even the faintest breath into something kind. Sister Hildegard lifts her hand, her fingers brushing the edge of the cask, and you feel how the hush holds that small, patient touch like a promise. The novice tilts her head, her eyes bright, and you see the soft curve of her smile. A quiet echo of laughter in the hush, a small, bright spark that says even here, in the cold heart of the cellar, there is warmth waiting, and in that gentle hush, in the soft rustle of the hops and the warm breath of the rushlight, you feel how even the smallest sound can be a quiet prayer, a soft promise that the sleepy beer will carry every bright dream, every gentle laugh, into the hush of the night. You feel the hush of the cellar deepen as Sister Hildegard and the novice pause to watch the first bubbles rise in the wooden cask, the quiet gurgle of the fermentation like a small, gentle breath in the soft dark. The warm scent of sweet malt and earthy hops curls through the hush, and you see how the novice leans closer, her eyes wide with wonder. Sister Hildegard lifts her hand, her fingers brushing the cool wood of the cask, and she smiles. "This," she murmurs, her voice low and sure, "is the part that never grows old, the small miracle of the brew." The novice tilts her head, her breath slow and even, and you see how the hush folds around her, turning every small sound into something bright and kind. Historians still argue whether the nuns truly understood the quiet alchemy of fermentation or if they simply trusted in the hush and the warmth of the small kitchen fires. Some say they were wise brewers, others that it was a kind of soft magic, an old mystery that turned water and barley to something sweet and warm in the patient dark. You see how the hush breathes with every bubble, every soft ripple of foam, and you know that even here, in the slow, steady quiet, there is warmth waiting. The novice lifts her head, her fingers resting on the edge of the cask, and you see the small smile that flickers across her lips. Sister Hildegard's eyes crinkle at the corners, her breath slow and easy, and she begins to hum a soft tune, just a faint song that weaves through the hush like a lullaby. The novice leans closer, her own breath joining the quiet melody, and you feel how the hush wraps around them both, every note and gentle sigh held close in the warm dark. The wooden beams overhead seem to lean in too, the soft creak of old with a quiet echo of the song. The bubbles rise and fall, the faint foam glimmering in the flicker of the rushlight, and you watch how the hush cradles even that small, bright promise. A tiny miracle turned warm and sweet in the patient dark. Sister Hildegard glances at the novice, her smile soft and secret, and you see how even that small look is held in the hush, every breath turned kind. The novice lifts her hand to her lips, her eyes bright with laughter, and you feel how the hush holds that too. A soft promise of warmth in the gentle, sleepy dark, and in that hush, in the slow, quiet dance of bubbles and the gentle hum of soft voices, you feel how even the smallest breath can be a prayer, a soft, warm promise that the sleepy beer will carry every gentle dream, every quiet laugh, into the hush of the night. You watch as the novice leans against the wooden cask, her eyes bright and drowsy in the flicker of the rushlight. Sister Hildegard sits across from her on a small wooden stool, her hands folded in her lap, and you see how the hush holds them both, turning every quiet breath into something warm and kind. A soft laugh slips from the novice's lips. The sound is bright as the flicker of the rushlight, and Sister Hildegard's eyes crinkle in the warm glow. "We say," she murmurs, her voice low and amused, "that the beer tastes sweeter when there's laughter in the kitchen." The novice's breath catches in a quiet giggle, and you see how the hush bends to hold it close, every small sound a promise of warmth in the cool dark. Historians still argue whether these moments of quiet chatter were as much a part of brewing as the barley and hops. Some say they were just small breaks in the hush, others that they were the heart of the brew itself. You feel it now, how every soft laugh and gentle sigh weaves through the warm dark, turning even the slowest hour into something bright and kind. The novice reaches for a small wooden ladle resting on the edge of the cask, her fingers brushing the smooth handle, and she dips it into the slowly frothing beer. The hush seems to hold its breath, every soft sound wrapped in the warm glow of the rushlight, and she lifts the ladle to her lips, her eyes wide with the small thrill of the taste. Sister Hildegard leans forward, her breath warm and steady in the cool air, and you see how the hush cradles them both, turning every quiet sip into a small, bright promise. "Not too much," she warns with a soft smile, "or you'll be asleep before the last prayer is said." The novice giggles again, the soft sound weaving through the hush like a gentle song, and you see how the hush folds around her, turning every small sound into something kind. The cellar air is thick with the sweet scent of malt and hops, the slow rise and fall of the bubbles like a soft sigh in the dark. You watch as Sister Hildegard leans back, her eyes soft in the glow, and you see how the hush holds her gentle smile, how it turns every breath into a quiet promise, and in that soft hush, in the warm glow of laughter and the slow dance of bubbles, you feel how even the smallest sound, every soft giggle, every bright breath, can be a prayer, a gentle echo of warmth and rest in the hush of the sleepy beer. You settle deeper into the quiet hush of the cellar, the soft laughter of the novice blending with the warm scent of barley and hops. Sister Hildegard smiles, her eyes bright in the flicker of the rushlight, and you see how the hush folds around them both. Every breath turns soft and kind. The novice leans closer, her fingers trailing along the smooth wood of the cask, and she lifts her head to ask, "Sister, why does it make me so sleepy?" Sister Hildegard chuckles, her breath warm in the cool air, and she tilts her head. "The hops, dear," she says, her voice low and amused. "The hops calm the heart and soften the mind. Though some say it's the prayers, too." Historians still argue whether the sleepy magic of the beer was the work of the hops alone or the soft whisper of prayer folded into every warm breath of the kitchen. Some say it was simple chemistry, others that it was a kind of gentle blessing. You see how the hush cradles that question, how it turns every small wonder into a soft promise. The novice giggles, her breath bright in the warm glow, and Sister Hildegard winks. "A small sip for restless nights," she says, her voice like honey in the hush. A gentle nudge toward dreams when the world feels too heavy. You feel the hush sigh around her words, every soft breath turned warm and sweet. The novice reaches for the ladle once more, her fingers careful and sure, and she dips it into the cask, her breath slow and even. She lifts it to her lips, her eyes closing as the warm liquid touches her tongue, and you see the faint, secret smile that blooms in the hush. A quiet promise of dreams waiting just beyond the last sip. Sister Hildegard hums a soft tune, her voice low and sure, and the hush leans in to catch every note, every gentle breath. The novice joins her, her voice a quiet echo in the soft dark, and you see how the hush weaves their song into something warm and kind. The flicker of the rushlight turns the cellar walls to honey and gold, the slow rise and fall of the bubbles in the cask a gentle lullaby in the hush. You watch as the novice lowers her head, her breath soft and slow, and you feel how the hush folds around her like a warm blanket, turning every small sigh into something bright and kind. And in that soft, patient hush, in the warm glow of laughter and the slow, quiet breath of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the smallest act, a shared sip, a gentle song, can turn the cold, quiet dark into something warm and kind, a soft promise of rest waiting in the hush. You watch as the novice leans back against the cool stone wall, the warmth of the sleepy beer softening her eyes and turning every breath into a slow, gentle sigh. Sister Hildegard sets the ladle back on the edge of the cask, her hands sure and steady, and you see how the hush of the cellar folds around them both, turning every small sound into a soft, kind promise. The novice giggles softly, her voice bright in the quiet dark. "I feel as though I could sleep for 100 years, she says, and Sister Hildegard's smile curves, gentle and knowing. "Perhaps not quite that long," she says with a wink, "but enough to dream of warm bread and bright laughter." You feel the hush bend to that small promise, how it cradles every gentle breath like a soft, warm sigh. Historians still argue whether the sleepy effect of the beer was truly as powerful as the nuns believed. Some say it was the hops alone, others that it was the soft weight of the prayers whispered in the dark. But you see how the novice's eyes flutter closed, how Sister Hildegard's hand rests lightly on her shoulder, and you know that even here, in the cold hush of the cellar, there is warmth waiting. The rushlight flickers, its glow turning the wooden casks to honey and gold, and you watch as Sister Hildegard lifts her head, her breath slow and even. "Rest is a gift," she says, her voice low and sure, "a quiet blessing wrapped in the soft breath of the night." The novice nods, her smile small and secret in the hush, and you feel how even that faint curve of her lips is a promise. A soft spark in the quiet dark, Sister Hildegard hums a gentle tune, the soft notes weaving through the hush like a lullaby, and you see how the novice's eyes drift closed, her breath slowing in the warm dark. The cellar seems to breathe with them, the old stones holding every soft sigh and gentle hum close, turning the quiet into something alive and kind. The novice's head droops, her breath a quiet hush in the hush, and Sister Hildegard lifts her hand, her fingers brushing the girl's cheek with a touch as soft as a prayer. You feel how the hush holds that touch close, how it turns every small breath into a promise of rest and warmth. And in that soft, patient hush, in the warm glow of the rushlight and the slow, gentle sigh of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the quietest breath can be a prayer, a small, bright spark that turns the cold, silent dark into something warm and kind, a promise of dreams waiting in the hush of the sleepy beer. You watch as the hush of the cellar deepens, the soft glow of the rushlight painting the old stone walls with gentle gold. Sister Hildegard hums a quiet tune, her voice low and sure, and you feel how the hush breathes with every soft note, how it cradles each small sound like a warm promise in the cold dark. The novice stirs in her seat, her head drooping as the sleepy beer weaves its quiet magic, and you see how Sister Hildegard's hand rests gently on her shoulder, her fingers light and kind. "Sleep, dear one," she murmurs, her voice as soft as the hush itself. "Let the night carry you to dreams." You feel how the hush bends to that promise, how it turns every breath into a small, bright light in the quiet dark. Historians still argue whether these quiet evenings in the convent cellars were as sacred as the chapel prayers above. Some say they were just another small ritual, others that they were a secret sanctuary where the hush itself became a kind of blessing. You feel it now, how even the flicker of the rushlight seems to hum with the gentle warmth of the sleepy beer, how every sigh and small breath turns the quiet into something alive and kind. Sister Hildegard lifts the wooden cup to her lips, her eyes half closed in the warm dark, and you see how the hush folds around her, how it holds every small movement close like a soft prayer. She lowers the cup, her breath slow and even, and you watch as she glances at the novice, her smile small and secret in the flickering light. The novice shifts again, her breath a quiet sigh, and you see how the hush cradles her, how it turns the cool stone and the cold air into a soft, warm cradle. Sister Hildegard hums once more, the tune slow and gentle, and you feel how the hush folds every note close, turning even the faintest breath into a promise of warmth and dreams. The cellar seems to sigh around them, the old beams and rough stones breathing with every soft sound. You watch as Sister Hildegard closes her eyes, her lips still curved in that small, gentle smile, and you feel how the hush holds her, how it turns every quiet breath into something warm and bright, and in that soft, patient hush, in the slow, warm glow of the rushlight and the gentle breath of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the smallest sigh can be a promise, how every quiet breath can be a prayer. A soft, warm echo of laughter and dreams, a gentle promise that even in the coldest night, there is warmth waiting in the hush. You feel the hush of the cellar grow even softer, the air thick with the warm scent of barley and herbs, the quiet song of Sister Hildegard folding around every small breath like a gentle prayer. The novice has drifted into a light doze, her head resting against the wooden cask, the faint smile on her lips a small, bright promise in the soft dark. Sister Hildegard's hands move with quiet care, folding a scrap of linen over the mouth of the cask, her touch as light as a whisper. You watch how the hush breathes around her, how every small motion turns the cold air to something warm and kind. She glances at the novice, her smile tender, and you see how the hush holds that look close, turning it into a promise that even the smallest breath can be a prayer, a gentle blessing in the quiet dark. She hums a low tune, her voice weaving through the hush like a soft ribbon of light, and you feel how every note glows in the quiet air. Historians still argue whether the brewing of beer was considered holy work or just another small task in the long hush of the convent's days. Some say it was a quiet devotion, others that it was just a way to fill the silence. But you see how Sister Hildegard's eyes soften, how her breath slows, and you know that even here, in the soft hush of the cellar, there is warmth waiting. The rushlight flickers, the glow turning the edges of the old stone walls to honey and gold, and you watch as Sister Hildegard lifts her hand, her fingers brushing the novice's cheek with a touch as soft as the hush itself. The novice stirs, her breath slow and even, and you see the small, secret smile that flickers across her lips, the quiet promise of dreams waiting just beyond the last breath. Sister Hildegard leans back, her hands resting in her lap, and you feel how the hush settles around her like a soft, warm cloak. The cellar seems to breathe with her, the old wood and worn stone holding every small sound close, turning even the faintest sigh into a promise of rest, and in that soft, gentle hush, In the quiet song of Sister Hildegard's breath and the slow, patient magic of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the coldest stone can be warmed by laughter shared in the dark, how every small breath can be a quiet promise, a gentle echo of dreams and warmth in the hush of the night. You watch as Sister Hildegard rises from her low stool, the soft rustle of her robes blending with the hush of the cellar. She lifts a small wooden cup from the shelf, its surface worn smooth by countless gentle hands, and you see how the hush folds around her, how it cradles every small movement in the warm dark. She dips the cup into the cask, her hand steady and sure, and lifts it to her lips. The faint steam of the sleepy beer rises in the soft glow of the rushlight, the warm scent of malt and hops curling through the quiet like a gentle breath. Sister Hildegard closes her eyes, her lips parting in a soft smile, and you see how the hush holds that smile close, how it turns every breath into a promise of warmth. The novice stirs in her sleep, her head resting against the wooden cask, and you see how even her quiet sighs become part of the hush, how the cellar breathes with her. Sister Hildegard glances down at her, her eyes soft and knowing, and you feel how the hush bends to hold them both, patient and kind. Historians still argue whether these small sips in the cellar were acts of comfort or small rebellions against the cold, endless dark of winter nights. Some say they were a simple indulgence, others that they were a quiet prayer, a soft promise of warmth folded into the hush. But you see how Sister Hildegard lifts her head, how her breath slows in the warm dark, and you know that even here, in the silent heart of the convent, there is laughter waiting. She sets the cup down on the edge of the cask, her fingers lingering for just a moment, and you feel how the hush holds that small pause close, how it turns even the simplest act into something gentle and bright. The rushlight flickers, its glow painting the worn stone with soft gold, and you watch as Sister Hildegard's smile grows, as she glances at the sleeping novice with a quiet affection that hums in the warm dark. The cellar seems to sigh around them, the old wood and cold stone softened by the warm breath of the sleepy beer, and you see how even the smallest sound, a soft sip, a gentle sigh, can be a promise in the hush. Sister Hildegard lifts her head, her eyes bright, and you feel how the hush wraps around her, how it cradles every breath like a soft, warm prayer, and in that gentle hush, in the slow flicker of the rushlight and the soft breath of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the coldest night can be turned warm and bright by nothing more than a quiet sip and a gentle smile in the hush of the dark. You feel the hush of the cellar settle deeper still, the soft warmth of barley and hops weaving through the cool, patient dark. Sister Hildegard rests her hands on the wooden cask, her breath slow and sure, and you see how the hush folds around her, how it cradles every small sound like a gentle promise. The novice stirs in her sleep, her breath soft and even, and you watch as Sister Hildegard leans closer, her voice a quiet murmur in the warm dark. "Rest, child," she says, her words low and kind. "Let the night carry you where the prayers cannot." You feel how the hush holds that promise close, how it turns every word into a small, bright light in the dark. Historians still argue whether the sleepy beer was a remedy or a gentle indulgence. Some say it was the nuns' quiet rebellion, others that it was a blessing folded into every soft sip. But you see how Sister Hildegard's fingers trace the rough wood of the cask, how her breath slows in the hush, and you know that even here, in the cold heart of the cellar, there is warmth waiting. The novice sighs in her sleep, the sound as soft as the flicker of the rushlight, and Sister Hildegard smiles. She hums a low tune, her voice weaving through the hush like a lullaby, and you feel how the hush breathes with her, how it turns every small note into a soft, warm cradle. The cellar seems to glow in the flicker of the rushlight, the old stones breathing with the gentle magic of the sleepy beer. Sister Hildegard lifts her head, her eyes bright in the warm dark, and you see how the hush folds around her, how it turns every breath into a promise of dreams waiting just beyond the quiet night. She lifts the small wooden cup once more, her hand steady and sure, and you watch as she sips, her lips curving in a soft, secret smile. The novice stirs again, her eyes fluttering open for just a moment, and you see how the hush holds that small, bright wonder close, how it turns even the faintest breath into something kind, and in that soft, patient hush, in the warm glow of the rushlight and the slow, gentle sigh of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the coldest night can be turned warm and sweet by nothing more than a quiet breath, a gentle song, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You watch as the hush of the cellar grows deeper still, each small sound folded into the warm dark like a gentle promise. Sister Hildegard sets the wooden cup back on the worn shelf, her fingers lingering on the smooth curve of it, and you see how the hush holds even that small touch close, turning it into something soft and kind. The novice shifts in her sleep, her breath slow and steady, and Sister Hildegard's smile grows. She glances at the flickering rushlight, its glow soft and warm, and you see how her eyes catch the light, how the hush seems to hum around her like a quiet song. She turns to you, her voice low and sure. "There is an old story," she says, her breath curling in the warm air, "that the sleepy beer was first brewed by Saint Bridget herself, as a gift for those who carried too many worries to sleep." You lean closer, your breath soft in the hush, and you feel how the cellar leans in too, how every stone and timber seems to listen. Historians still argue whether St. Bridget's sleepy beer was real or just a gentle legend. Some say it was a simple comfort, others that it was a soft promise folded into every sip. But you see how Sister Hildegard's eyes glow as she speaks, how the novice stirs in her sleep with a faint, secret smile, and you know that even here, in the quiet hush of the cellar, there is truth in the story. Sister Hildegard hums again, the soft notes weaving through the warm dark, and you feel how the hush carries that song, how it turns every quiet breath into a promise of warmth and dreams. The novice sighs in her sleep, the sound small and bright, and you see how the hush cradles her, how it folds her gentle breath into the soft dark. The rushlight flickers, the glow turning the worn wood and rough stone to honey and gold, and you see how Sister Hildegard leans back, her smile a soft, secret curve in the hush. "Sleep is a gift," she says, her voice low and warm, "a small, quiet blessing that carries us to morning." And in that soft hush, in the warm breath of the sleepy beer and the slow, patient magic of the night, you feel how even the coldest stone can be warmed by nothing more than a quiet breath, a gentle song, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You feel the hush of the cellar cradle every breath, the slow, patient warmth of barley and hops folding around you like a soft blanket. Sister Hildegard stands by the wooden cask, her fingers resting lightly on the worn wood, and you see how the hush holds even that small touch close, turning it into something gentle and kind. The novice stirs in her sleep, her head resting on the cool stone wall, and you see how Sister Hildegard's smile curves at the corners, how her breath grows slow and sure in the warm dark. She leans over the cask, her voice low and soft as she whispers another quiet prayer, the words a gentle song that hums through the hush. Historians still argue whether these quiet prayers were meant to bless the beer or to ease the worries of those who brewed it. Some say they were simple habit, others that they were a soft echo of faith folded into every slow breath. But you feel it now, how the hush bends around each word, how it turns every quiet sound into a promise of warmth and dreams. The rushlight flickers, the glow painting the worn stones with soft gold, and you see how the novice's breath slows in her sleep, how even that faint, gentle sigh is part of the hush. Sister Hildegard's lips move in a quiet smile, her fingers tracing the edge of the cask, and you feel how the hush cradles her, how it turns every breath into something kind. She lifts a small wooden ladle, dipping it into the cask, and you watch as she lifts it to her lips, her eyes closing in the warm glow. The faint steam of the sleepy beer curls around her fingers, the scent of sweet herbs and barley drifting through the hush like a soft promise. She drinks, her breath slow and even, and you see how the hush sighs around her, how it folds every small sound close. The novice stirs again, her eyes fluttering open for just a moment, and you see how the hush holds that small wonder, how it turns even the faintest breath into something warm and kind. Sister Hildegard lowers the ladle, her smile soft and secret in the flickering light, and you feel how the hush carries that promise, how it cradles every soft sound, every gentle breath, like a quiet blessing in the cold dark, and in that soft hush, in the slow, warm glow of the rushlight and the gentle sigh of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the coldest night can be turned bright and kind by nothing more than a quiet breath, a gentle prayer, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You feel the hush of the cellar deepen as Sister Hildegard lifts her head, her breath slow and sure, and you see how the flicker of the rushlight softens the cold stone walls into something warm and kind. She sets the ladle aside, her fingers lingering on the smooth wood for just a moment, and you feel how the hush holds that small touch close. The novice stirs again, her eyes blinking open in the warm dark, and you watch as she lifts her head, her breath a quiet sigh that turns the hush into something soft and bright. Sister Hildegard smiles, her eyes crinkling at the corners, and you see how the hush bends to hold that smile, how it cradles every small breath like a promise. "Did I sleep?" the novice whispers, her voice low and wondering, and Sister Hildegard nods. "A little," she says, her voice warm as the flicker of the rushlight. "Just enough to dream." The novice smiles, her cheeks pink in the warm glow, and you feel how the hush folds around that small wonder, how it turns every gentle breath into something kind. Historians still argue whether the sleepy beer truly carried the nuns to dreams or whether it was simply the slow hush of the cellar, the warmth of barley and hops weaving through the quiet dark. Some say it was the beer alone, others that it was the soft breath of prayers whispered in the warm air. But you see how the novice's eyes soften, how Sister Hildegard's breath grows slow and sure, and you know that even here, in the cold heart of the cellar, there is warmth waiting. Sister Hildegard leans forward, her hand brushing a strand of hair from the novice's face, and you see how the hush holds even that small touch close, how it turns every quiet breath into a gentle promise. The novice giggles softly, the sound as bright as the flicker of the rushlight, and you see how the hush bends to hold that laugh, how it folds it close like a soft, warm blanket. The novice lifts the small wooden cup, her fingers trembling just a little, and she sips the sleepy beer, her breath slow and even in the warm dark. Sister Hildegard watches her, her eyes bright and kind, and you feel how the hush breathes with them, how it carries every small sound like a quiet prayer, and in that soft hush, in the gentle flicker of the rushlight and the slow, patient warmth of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the coldest night can be turned soft and kind by nothing more than a quiet breath, a shared smile, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You watch as Sister Hildegard sets the small wooden cup down on the worn shelf, her hands steady and sure in the soft glow of the rushlight. The novice leans back against the cool stone wall, her breath slow and even, and you see how the hush of the cellar folds around them both, turning every quiet sound into something warm and kind. Sister Hildegard smiles, her eyes bright in the warm dark, and she lifts her hand to brush a faint line of flour from the novice's cheek. "You've done well today," she says, her voice low and soft. "The sleepy beer is patient. It asks only for gentle hands and a quiet heart." The novice nods, her smile shy, and you feel how the hush bends to hold that small moment close, how it cradles every gentle breath like a promise. Historians still argue whether these slow, quiet moments were as much a part of the brewing as the barley and hops. Some say they were just small comforts, others that they were the heart of the hush itself, a quiet devotion folded into every soft breath. But you see how Sister Hildegard's eyes soften, how the novice's head tilts in the flicker of the rushlight, and you know that even here, in the patient hush of the cellar, there is warmth waiting. The rushlight flickers, the glow painting the old stones with soft gold, and you watch as Sister Hildegard glances around the cellar, her breath slow and steady. "It's time to let the beer rest," she murmurs, her fingers trailing along the edge of the cask. "It will dream as we dream." Slow and sure in the hush, the novice leans forward, her breath a small, soft sigh, and you see how the hush holds that breath close, how it turns even the faintest sound into something bright and kind. Sister Hildegard lifts the small wooden ladle once more, her hand steady, and she dips it into the cask, her breath slow in the warm dark. She lifts it to her lips, her eyes closing for just a moment, and you see how the hush seems to sigh around her, how it folds every quiet movement into something warm and soft. The novice watches, her eyes bright, and you see the small smile that flickers across her lips, a gentle echo of the hush in the quiet dark. And in that gentle hush, in the slow, patient glow of the rushlight and the soft, steady breath of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the coldest night can be turned warm and kind by nothing more than a quiet prayer, a soft sip, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You watch as Sister Hildegard rests her hand on the cask, her eyes soft in the flicker of the rushlight. The novice leans forward, her breath slow and steady, and you feel how the hush of the cellar folds around them both, turning every quiet sigh into a warm, patient promise. Sister Hildegard begins to hum again, the soft tune winding through the warm dark like a gentle thread. The novice closes her eyes, her head tilting slightly as she listens, and you see how the hush carries that quiet song, how it turns every small note into a promise of dreams. Historians still argue whether these songs were meant to bless the beer or simply to carry the weight of the hush. A small, bright comfort in the cold dark. Some say they were old prayers wrapped in melody, others that they were a soft, secret rebellion against the long, silent nights. But you feel it now, how the hush breathes with every note, how it cradles every small sound like a gentle prayer. The novice opens her eyes, her gaze bright in the warm glow, and she smiles. "It's beautiful," she says, her voice low and soft, and Sister Hildegard's smile curves in the hush. "It's for the beer," she says, her breath a gentle sigh. "And for those who drink it." You watch as the novice leans closer, her fingers tracing the rough edge of the cask, and you see how the hush holds even that small touch close, how it turns every breath into a quiet promise. Sister Hildegard dips the ladle once more, her hand steady and sure, and lifts it to her lips, her eyes half closed in the warm dark. The rushlight flickers, its glow turning the cold stone to honey and gold, and you feel how the hush leans in, how it carries every soft breath and quiet song like a warm, gentle lullaby. Sister Hildegard lowers the ladle, her lips curving in a small, secret smile, and you see how the novice watches her, her breath a soft sigh in the hush. The hush seems to breathe with them, the old wood and worn stone holding every small sound close, turning the quiet dark into something kind and warm. And in that soft, patient hush, in the slow flicker of the rushlight and the warm scent of barley and hops, you feel how even the coldest night can be turned soft and bright by nothing more than a quiet song, a gentle breath, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You watch as Sister Hildegard lowers the ladle, her breath soft in the hush, and you see how the novice's eyes follow every small movement, her smile bright in the warm dark. The flicker of the rushlight turns the quiet cellar to gold, and you feel how the hush folds around them both, turning every gentle sigh into a promise of rest. Sister Hildegard glances at the novice, her voice a low hum in the warm air. "The beer must rest now," she says, her breath as soft as the hush. "Let it sleep as we sleep, slow and sure in the quiet dark." The novice nods, her fingers tracing the edge of the cask, and you see how the hush holds that small touch close, how it cradles every breath like a gentle prayer. Historians still argue whether the rest of the beer was simply part of the brewing or a quiet devotion in itself. Some say it was the slow, patient work of sleep itself, others that it was a small, bright magic folded into the hush. But you feel it now, how even the faintest sound, a soft sigh, a gentle laugh, can be part of that quiet promise. Sister Hildegard covers the cask with a small linen cloth, her hands sure and steady in the warm glow of the rushlight. The novice watches, her breath slow and even, and you see how the hush folds around them, how it turns every small movement into a soft promise of dreams waiting in the dark. The cellar seems to breathe with them, the old wood and worn stone sighing in the hush, and you feel how every small sound is turned warm and kind by the sleepy beer waiting in the cask. Sister Hildegard lifts her head, her smile soft and secret, and she hums once more, the faint melody weaving through the warm air like a lullaby. The novice joins her, her voice a quiet echo in the hush, and you see how the hush bends to hold that song, how it turns every small note into a gentle promise. And in that soft, patient hush, in the slow flicker of the rushlight and the warm breath of barley and hops, you feel how even the coldest night can be turned bright and kind by nothing more than a quiet breath, a gentle prayer, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You watch as Sister Hildegard rests her hand on the covered cask, her breath slow and sure in the warm hush. The novice leans back against the cool stone wall, her eyes half closed, and you see how the hush of the cellar cradles them both, turning every small sound into something soft and kind. The rushlight flickers, its glow turning the old stones to honey and gold, and you feel how the hush breathes with them, how it holds every quiet sigh and gentle smile close. Sister Hildegard hums a soft tune, the melody weaving through the warm dark, and the novice hums along, her voice a faint echo in the hush. Historians still argue whether these quiet songs were simply to pass the time or a soft, secret blessing folded into the sleepy beer. Some say they were lullabies for the brew itself, others that they were gentle prayers to the hush. But you feel it now, how every note glows in the soft dark, how the hush folds it close like a promise. Sister Hildegard lifts her head, her smile bright in the warm glow, and you see how the novice's breath slows, how her eyes soften in the hush. The sleepy beer rests in the cask, the scent of sweet herbs and barley still lingering in the air, and you feel how the hush carries that promise, how it turns every breath into something bright and kind. The novice glances at Sister Hildegard, her lips curving in a small, secret smile, and you see how the hush holds that smile close, how it turns even the faintest breath into a gentle promise. Sister Hildegard nods, her eyes warm and knowing, and she leans closer, her voice low. "Sleep is a gift," she murmurs, her breath a soft sigh in the hush. "A small blessing for those who remember how to rest." And in that soft hush, in the slow, patient glow of the rushlight and the quiet breath of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the coldest night can be turned warm and kind by nothing more than a gentle song, a quiet prayer, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You feel the hush of the cellar settle deeper still, the warm scent of hops and sweet barley curling through the cool air. Sister Hildegard's hand rests on the cask, her breath slow and sure, and you see how the novice leans closer, her eyes half-lidded with the soft weight of sleepiness. The flicker of the rushlight turns the cellar to gold, every old stone and worn beam glowing in the gentle dark. Sister Hildegard hums a slow tune, her voice low and tender, and you feel how the hush folds around every note, how it carries each gentle breath like a small, bright light in the cold. The novice sighs, her head resting on the edge of the wooden cask, and you see the faint smile that lingers on her lips, a small, secret promise that even here, in the heart of the hush, there is warmth waiting. Sister Hildegard lifts her head, her eyes bright in the warm dark, and she glances at the novice with a smile that says more than words. Historians still argue whether these small, quiet moments were sacred or simply a soft comfort in the cold nights. Some say they were holy, others that they were just small rebellions against the long hush. But you see how the novice's breath slows, how Sister Hildegard's smile softens, and you know that even here, in the hush of the sleepy beer, there is a promise of dreams. Sister Hildegard lifts her hand to brush a lock of hair from the novice's forehead. Her touch is light as the hush itself, and you see how the cellar seems to breathe with them, how every small sound becomes a prayer in the warm dark. The novice stirs, her eyes fluttering open for a moment, and you see the faint glimmer of laughter there, the soft, bright echo of warmth in the hush. Sister Hildegard leans closer, her voice a soft murmur. "The night is long," she says, "but there is kindness here." And in that gentle hush, in the slow flicker of the rushlight and the warm breath of the sleepy beer, you feel how even the coldest night can be turned soft and kind by nothing more than a quiet breath, a gentle smile, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You watch as Sister Hildegard sits back, her hands folded in her lap, her breath slow, and even in the warm hush of the cellar, the novice leans against the cask, her eyes drifting closed, and you feel how the hush holds them both, how it turns every soft sigh into a quiet promise. The rushlight flickers, the glow painting the old stones with soft gold, and you see how Sister Hildegard's smile curves, how her eyes soften in the gentle dark. "Let the beer rest," she murmurs, her voice as warm as the hush itself. "Let it dream as we do, quiet and kind in the soft dark." Historians still argue whether the brewing of sleepy beer was born from devotion or simply the gentle rhythm of the day. Some say it was an art, others a quiet necessity. But you see how the hush bends to every small breath, how it cradles Sister Hildegard's slow smile, and you know that even here, in the patient hush of the cellar, there is warmth waiting. The novice stirs, her breath a soft sigh, and you watch as she opens her eyes, her gaze bright in the warm glow. Sister Hildegard leans forward, her voice low and kind. "Sleep is a gift," she says, "and tonight we've earned it." The hush holds that promise close, the old wood and rough stone breathing with them, and you feel how every small sound becomes a lullaby, a quiet song folded into the slow, patient dark. The novice smiles, her lips curved in a small, secret glow, and you see how the hush wraps that smile in gold. Sister Hildegard hums once more, the tune soft and sure, and you watch as the novice joins her, her voice a faint echo in the warm dark. The cellar seems to breathe with them, the sleepy beer resting in the cask, every small sound a promise of dreams waiting in the hush, and in that soft, gentle quiet, in the warm glow of the rushlight and the slow, patient breath of the sleepy beer, You feel how even the coldest night can be turned bright and kind by nothing more than a gentle hum, a soft smile, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. You feel the hush of the cellar settle like a soft quilt around you, the warmth of barley and hops folding into the quiet dark. Sister Hildegard sits still by the cask, her hands resting gently in her lap, and the novice leans closer, her breath slow and sure as sleep drifts in on the soft hush. The flicker of the rushlight turns the worn stone walls to honey and gold, and you see how every small sound, a quiet sigh, a faint smile, becomes part of the lullaby of the sleepy beer. Sister Hildegard's eyes soften, her breath calm and kind, and she lifts her head to whisper a final prayer, her voice low and warm in the hush. Historians still argue whether these quiet blessings were simple habits or soft promises of peace. Some say they were just gentle echoes in the dark, others that they were the quiet heart of every night's hush. But you feel it now, how even the faintest breath can be a prayer, how every small sigh becomes a promise in the soft dark. The novice's eyes flutter closed, her smile gentle in the warm glow, and you see how Sister Hildegard's smile curves in the hush, how it turns every quiet breath into a soft promise. The rushlight flickers, its glow steady and patient, and you feel how the hush cradles every small sound, how it carries every quiet breath like a lullaby. Sister Hildegard hums a final note, the sound as soft as a sigh, and you feel how the hush holds it close, how it turns every small sound into a promise of warmth. The novice's head droops, her breath even and slow, and you see how the hush folds around her, how it turns the cold dark into something gentle and kind. And as you stand there, in the warm hush of the cellar, you know that even the longest night can be turned soft and bright by nothing more than a quiet breath, a soft hum, and the promise of dreams waiting in the hush. Let your breath grow slow now, each quiet sigh a soft echo in the hush. Let the gentle glow of the rushlight fade in your mind, and feel how the warmth of barley and hops drifts around you like a soft, patient quilt. You're safe here, in the slow, patient hush of the sleepy beer, where every small breath is a quiet promise, every gentle sigh a warm cradle for your dreams. Close your eyes and let the hush settle deeper, each quiet note of Sister Hildegard's hum a soft lullaby that carries you farther from the cold dark. Feel the weight of the day lift from your shoulders, each breath a slow step into something gentle and kind. The novice's quiet smile lingers in the hush, a small, bright spark that glows like a lantern in the soft dark. You're warm here, wrapped in the hush that folds around every small sound, every quiet breath turned to honey and gold. Let your shoulders relax, your head grow heavy, and feel how the hush cradles you close, turning even the faintest sigh into a promise of rest. The cellar grows quiet, the soft glow of the rushlight turning every old stone and worn timber into a gentle promise of dreams. Let the hush hold you now, each breath slow and even, each sigh a soft step deeper into the warm, quiet dark. And as you drift in that soft hush, know that the sleepy beer waits with you. A small, bright promise of laughter shared in the gentle dark, of dreams waiting just beyond the last sigh. Sleep now. You're safe. You're warm. The hush will hold you close.